Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Seabass of WNWS in Jackson, Tennessee. Our show, sponsored by The Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water. The Well is a coffee house with a mission to bring clean water to the world. To date, over 30 communities across the globe now have access to safe water, health, and hope. You too can make an impact by visiting a Well Coffee House location today. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area: Brentwood, Green Hills downtown, and Bellevue. More information can be found at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We also thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news presented by Sutherland and Belk, a local injury law firm committed to helping those injured in accidents. If you or someone you know has been in a wreck or other accident, reach out to Sutherland and Belk and see what your rights are. You can find their contact info online at sbinjurylaw.com. Athletic Director Malcolm Turner has said that Derek Mason will be Vanderbilt's coach going forward. Turner clarified that in a series of tweets he sent out on Tuesday afternoon. Our guest line, presented by Boll and Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've used Boll and Branch sheets for years and love them. They are fair trade certified, meaning they are made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them free for a month. You can return them but won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com, which is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Seabass joins us now, as he does every week. My friend, hope you are well. Let's ride.
Oh, I'm living the dream, man. I'm living the dadgum dream. You ready?
I better be.
If not, you can just put me on the line with somebody who's ready.
Can I just aimlessly vent, just selfishly for a minute?
Yep.
I don't even know where I'm going to go, but it occurs to me like, A, all I do anymore are cover dumpster fires and national titles. So there's that. Honestly, the Turner announcement bugged me, and this is completely selfish, because I think that if you're going to cover this and do this objectively, you can't get into a personal fire the coach crusade and then get upset if you don't get your way. That's not at all what I had been getting at or trying to do. I mean, you tell a story honestly, and after a while, the facts kind of speak for themselves. And I felt we had been there for a while, and I would be intellectually dishonest to not say that's where I thought this was headed and that's where I thought this should head based on the evidence. But it is what it is. But as I kind of have had 24 hours to unpack that, I mean, you heard it in my voice when we talked before the show. I'm worn out.
A little bit, yeah.
And this whole fall and the whole spring has been like this thing where everything I write or say has been, wait, I don't like the way that sounded because maybe that's too hard and I got to work with these guys. And then you rewrite it or re-say it and you're like, wait, I don't know. I don't like the way that sounded. Because it sounds Pollyanna. And I feel like our brand is we try to tell people the truth the best we can. And so it's been this vacillation with basically everything I do or say of, is this too hard or this is too easy? And you kind of never know at the moment if you settled in the right spot. And that has worn me out. And I swear to God, I thought we were at a point where I wasn't going to have to deal with that anymore. And I think I was already kind of feeling like, okay, football season is 12 days to the end or whatever. You can get through anything at that point if you feel like there's a better thing down the road. I have tried in press conferences to be fair but ask tough questions. And a couple weeks ago, I'm just like, what is the point? This seems like dead man walking. I think everybody knows it. What is the point in asking a guy that I personally have liked a question where I know it's like winding up one of those wind-up toys and just watching it self-destruct? I mean, you look at his press conference after the Kentucky game, it was a disaster. Everything he said in that press conference, one thing after another, was the wrong thing to say. And so, any question you ask him that's any degree of tough, what is going to happen? So, like, it's kind of like knowing that the minute you open your mouth to ask a question, you're going to set a dumpster fire, and it's not your fault. You cannot control what the other person is going to say, yet after 6 years of dealing with them, you know what's going to happen. So I've just been to the point where I'm like, just forget this. I think the string is going to play out. There's no need to pile on. I don't want to ever be mean-spirited to anybody, right?
Sure.
And then that announcement comes out. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now what? Because it's like I've got 2 more games of this and at least all of next year, and you know where this is headed.
I just, I'm sitting there trying to picture myself in that same press conference and ask questions. And I don't know what at this point now, I wouldn't know what to ask by now at this point. And I understand that you thought that, the narrative was going to be very different, but are you really that surprised? I mean, really, are you really that surprised?
Look, it's Vanderbilt. I don't think I'm ever surprised. And I don't
No.
mean that disrespectfully. I don't mean to pile. It just is. I mean, everything they have done has always been basically the reverse of everybody else, how they would do it. And sometimes that's good. I mean, like concussions, academic integrity, those things, those are all good things. I would never knock them for that. But I think the smartest man in the room syndrome is just really growing old. And it just a lot of times is dictated the way they've done a lot of things.
Well, I know a lot of people are expecting that I'm going to flip out, and freak out today on this podcast and do a lot of yelling and all this other stuff. Not going to happen. I don't think. It might. You know what? I shouldn't say it's not going to happen. It might. I might end up getting really pissed off. But I'm tired. I'm 47, Chris, and I'm tired. And here's why I'm tired. Can I tell you why I'm tired? I'm tired because, and I had a conversation, exchange with Jackson Garrison on Twitter yesterday, and watching some of the other players gauge their comments on it, and and the fans as well. And I just weighed it all together and just took it in, and then I realized something. Because don't get me wrong, when I first heard about it, I was extremely emotional. A lot of you heard me call George Plaster when Chris was on yesterday. And by the way, I don't know what Watson Brown's thinking or what he's talking about. Apparently, I like Watson, but he ain't watching this situation. He couldn't be, not with the stuff I heard. So let's take a look at this for a second. While I'm sitting at home ready to punch my computer screen, ready to scream and vent to the world and asking questions and yelling, and getting angry and mixing it up with people on social media. And I did some of those things. And then I thought about it, and then I thought about this. And I thought about the people making these decisions. And I'm convinced at this point, and Chris, now you from what you know and what you can or cannot share, I don't think this is Malcolm Turner. I did it first, and I think somebody, might have been you, asked a good question on one of the posts last night where you said, the question is, does Malcolm believe what he just told everybody? And I think the answer is probably no. But what I think is, while I'm sitting 4 decades in, thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars that I have spent going to games, lodging, traveling. As you know, I've never lived in Nashville. Chris, I've literally been in a fist fight over Vanderbilt football. I've yelled at the top of my lungs. I've cried. I've laughed. I've everything. because that's how much this program means to me. And by the way, even though we may be a small fractured base, there's a lot of people that feel the exact same way that I do. And then I thought about the people who truly made these decisions, because I know some of who they are, and I know you know well better than I do. And then I got to thinking about it. As devastated as I am by all this, I know that they're not. They're not upset. They're happy. They're going home into their however many millions of dollars house that they're sitting back. And they honestly, they couldn't care less. They're sitting back and they might even think they're doing the right thing, though I can't imagine that being the case. And you might say, well, it's easy for you to be cavalier with other people's money. I'm not the dummy that gave him that extension in the first place. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the collective, because it wasn't just his signature. There's a lot of people that made that happen, that allowed something so stupid to happen. They're not mad. They're glad. Chris, they're going to go on with their lives. They're never going to hear this podcast. They're never going to read your board. They might go to a game. They may not do that. It doesn't matter to them, and they have all the power. I can yell. I can scream on this podcast. I can post everything in the world. They're completely unfazed about it. Because all I have heard is a major up. How many people have you heard percentage-wise that are in favor of this publicly? Nobody. Except for a few people who are clinging, saying, we don't want to give up on the players. If you're a true Vanderbilt fan, if you're a faithful Vanderbilt fan, then you won't give them up on it either. Let me tell you something. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, you're faithful. If you publicly admit that you are a Vanderbilt football fan of any type of time length, you're faithful. And you owe nobody anything in regards to your fandom or your loyalty. You've already put that out there. You're not getting anything in return. You're getting squat in return from people who do not care. They care enough to rake in those checks every time they come in, but they care nothing about you. They're sitting home tonight swilling sherry, sitting back watching Crossfire, having a big time and not thinking about you, me, those young men who do it 12 months out of the year. And, unfortunately, they're sitting on rock bottom. We're sitting on rock bottom, and they're living the high life. And I can't get to them because I sure would like to. I'd like to look at them right in the eye and tell them who I think they are and what they are. And what they're doing. Like I said, I'm cool. I'm relaxed, as you can clearly tell, Chris. I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling, but I know that there are thousands of people out there that feel the exact way that I do, and they're completely helpless. There's nothing they can do about it. We thought, because we thought, okay, well, don't go to the games. That didn't work. Bitch about it on social media. Yell about it. Threaten not to come back. That don't work. You know why? Because they're more than content to let the opposing fan base make up for all the money you're not spending at their stadium. And then they want to blame you for not being there. It's a hell of a thing. I'm no business manager. I've never owned a business, but I've never seen a business that runs this way, that it treats its customers the way that this ridiculous group of people have. You should be ashamed of yourself, though I know you're not.
I don't even know where to begin to respond. I will take some disagreement with that if that is lumping in Board of Trust people. I do think, and I talked to somebody who's on the inside that has told me stuff that nobody else knows, almost. And I said, we talked about the Board of Trust. He said, I really don't think that's the issue. He said, I do think there's some buy-in there with them. And look, I've always said that there are elements of Vanderbilt that are a mystery to me and are hard to understand. And even the people that know how Vanderbilt works, it's hard for them to understand. So there's that. The other thing that gets old to me, and my goodness, I don't know how many times this fall, you know how I am on my board. I usually let people have their say, agree, disagree, indifferent unless it just gets out of hand and a name calling, and then I'll lock threads and stuff. But my thing is let people have their say. You can defend your opinion. You may have to come back and sit in it later if you're wrong, and the message board does have a memory. But it's free speech, and let's let it go unless it gets into slander or name calling or things like that, okay? The one thing that I'm a little bit tired of, and I understand the sentiment behind some of this, is the people that bring up other people's money and fair weather fans. Well, first of all, I don't know that Vanderbilt has any fair weather fans. If anybody is willing to endure what that fan base has dealt with, they don't deserve that finger pointed at them. And other people's money, heck, that's 90-something% of college football fan bases. They should be thankful they got anybody left.
I don't want it to sound as if that because look, as I clearly mentioned, I don't know everybody at play here, but and I'm not singling out the BOT, but I'm 100% sure of. It's like I told you on the phone before we got rolling on tape, Chris. You go up high enough, you're going to find people that make decisions. So I may not be talking to one person, but I promise you that my blanket's wide enough that it covered the people that it needed to cover. You know, I'm not sitting there pointing my finger just at the board. It wouldn't be all of them for sure. I understand that. And I don't even know some of the people that I'm talking about. I wouldn't know them if they were standing right in front of me or if you told me their names. Doesn't change the fact that their culpability remains the same.
This is the part about these that's just so lovely that you have to issue these blanket statements just to make sure that in all the dysfunction, nobody has inadvertently had the wrong finger pointed at them. This is so much fun.
At the end of the day, it's like I told you, it doesn't matter because even if they were listening, they don't care. They do not care. I don't matter. You don't matter. None of us matter. If we did, things would be different. We do not matter. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that it is. You know what? Change my mind.
Look, I'm not into anybody changing anybody's mind right now. People can have whatever opinion they want, okay?
And that's why I'm sitting here. And so when I hear people say, because look, there's been a dozen different things over the last 15 years that people says, that's it, I'm done. You know, now sometimes it's after a random football game. I'll never come back as long as blah, and all this other stuff. And I was like, I've always treated that with I've never been one to tell them, don't let the door hit you in the tail, because I understand what it is to be a Vanderbilt fan or to try to be one. But I'm seeing so many people saying, I know what y'all think, and I know you hear this all the time, but I really am done. I can't take this anymore. I've had season tickets. My family's had season tickets. We've been boosters for 20, 30 years, all these other things. When they say I can no longer give in good faith, I can no longer attend these games. We've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and I have nothing left. Chris, I get it. I understand. I don't want them to go, and I'm sitting here questioning myself. The only problem is, Chris, now for somebody like me, I don't know how to pull for someone else. I'm too invested. I could tell myself, I could tell all of y'all, I'm through with Vanderbilt. Go Texas Longhorns, because that would be my second team. That's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to see who they're recruiting. I'm going to look at their depth chart. I want to know every player where they went to school for that team, and I'm going to go travel to their games. I can't. It's too late for me. I'm 47 years old. I can't sit here and pretend like I just cut my ties today, though I would be justified just like any of you would be. And it leaves me in a crappy place. I don't know what to do, because what am I going to stop watching college football? This is my team. It's part of me. It's what I've been doing my whole life, and it's betraying me in every single facet here.
I want to
speak. And then you might say, well, shouldn't you be this by now? But the answer is no.
I want to speak to the perception issue for just a minute.
All right.
And this is just one person's opinion, okay? But this guy I have known for years, and he is, of all the sources I have, this guy may be the most level-headed person I know. He supports that university at every level, okay? Including athletics. Okay. We're talking yesterday. I'm just trying to understand the dynamics of Vanderbilt, what happened, what do you think, that kind of thing. And he says to me at one point, he says, I have probably, and again, this is not a guy who's got that entitled or I did this and you better give me a thank you. He is as grounded and level-headed and as emotionally stable a guy as I know. He says to me, I bet I have given $1 million to the university over the lifetime, and I don't even matter to them. He said, I've never really felt appreciated. He said, basically, here's the bottom line, and this guy knows stuff. He said, they've got about 20 or 30 mega donors, and really that's all that matters to them. And don't shoot the messenger. That is the perception they have to battle. And anyway, it is what it is, but yesterday, and look, you can tell me all the reasons why that was the right decision, and I can get that, okay? But this fan base was not in a position to take that one, and I don't think they had any idea of the blowback that was coming and is going to continue to come their way, and these are the issues that they have with perception. That and the fans getting a finger wagged at them for spending other people's money and fair weather and go root for Alabama when something like this happens.
Right. Well, then they must be the stupidest smart people ever if they had no idea that was going to be the reaction.
That's higher ed for you.
I mean, seriously, if they had no clue that this was going to be the blowback after all this, and then you put this on us, and you expect that nothing, that we're going to be, oh, cool, well, hopefully we'll beat ETSU this week. Do you really think that was going to be the response? I mean, we may not be Alabama's fan base, but my God, we still love our school. We still love our program, and we want the best. We're still people. We're still football fans. We're still fans of that school. Why would you think this would be okay? Don't forget how bad of a football program we are right now. Remember how your coach that you gave that extension to just dropped his team in the grease like it was nothing. Like it was a bodily function, and you're all right with that. And you thought we were going to be all right with that? Come on. Get a grip. Get real. This is why I say we can do this podcast, and that's great. It's great to vent, but the people that could do something about it don't care enough to do anything about it. You don't matter.
The guy that I most feel sorry for is Malcolm Turner. And this is a theory, okay? Some people disagree with me. I would have to have a pretty decent amount of convincing. I'm not saying I couldn't be. I feel sorry for him. I think he had the decision made over his head, whether it was the one he wanted or not. I think he is being left in the media to be the battering ram for all this, and my goodness, he is taking it on Twitter. God knows what he's getting in terms of emails and calls. I wonder if he will even want to survive this, and that is not speaking with any knowledge, but man, it's human nature. If something happens like that, and you're going to be the company man and have to defend it, and I can't prove it, but the guy that I've met and heard about is bright enough that he knows that everything he said is not true in terms of he's the guy for the job and whatever it was. I mean, we have all had to tell white lies at times, and I do not judge him for that. I just think he's smart enough to know better. And yet he is out there, a man alone, just getting knocked around like a piñata. And I understand that's what goes with the job. He's a highly paid guy. My impression of him is he's a really likable dude. I've not been around him a lot, but he's a guy that laughs easy, that you can talk to easily. I think he's very bright. I think he's very thoughtful. I hate it for him, if I am right, that he's having to take the brunt of that. I don't think that's fair. Maybe I'm totally off base, but that's just me. The other thing I would like to say, one more thing, and then I'll let you respond.
Okay.
I get why they might have to do what they did, okay? But I think once you know, I can understand the reasons in the way that they are explained. I'm not saying it's the right decision. Well, hear me out, okay? Because I'm not going in the direction you think. When you know that a guy in a position is the wrong guy for the job, I don't know that there's ever a circumstance where it's right to keep him. Look at what has happened. I think they kept the wrong guy in the chancellor's position for too long. Zeppos did some good things, but he wore out his welcome in a lot of ways. I think David Williams, God knows, you could go back and find the first year podcast and you could hear me saying they need to move on. This is a disaster. This is a disaster that the longer they keep him, he's just going to breed more disasters. So with that backdrop, now you keep a football coach who everybody thinks ought to be gone.
I mean, you're not going to argue with me. I think that is spot on. But here's what I would say in regards to Malcolm, because I think, I think you're probably right about Mr. Turner. I've had a chance to meet him, and I was really impressed by him, and I really believe he's got some good ideas. But I would tell you, if Malcolm Turner, I have no idea if Malcolm Turner is going to listen to this podcast or not, but I hope so. Or if he doesn't, somebody that knows him, direct him to this podcast. Because here's what I would say, Malcolm, they don't have you. They don't have you. You are a highly thought of, highly successful man already. You don't have to keep it sheathed for these people and be put in check for them and make you look like a fool for those fools' actions. You don't have to do it. You know what do? Fire you? Okay. I promise that phone will be ringing 5 minutes after they made that decision, which they're not going to do. But let's just pretend like they did. They don't have any leverage on you. Everybody out there publicly now can clearly see that this school, when it comes to athletics, is outside of course, the great Tim Corbin, but the people that are the roadblocks for what we're trying to do here. Everybody knows that publicly now. I don't think anybody's going to look at you and say, well, he was an utter failure at Vanderbilt. I think they're going to see he was handcuffed completely and put out on Front Street by a bunch of jackasses. So, Malcolm, hey, if Chris is right, and I think that he probably is, rock the boat. Do your thing. You don't have to cower down here. So if that's who you are, if you're the guy that Chris thinks you are and that I think you are, and these people are telling you this is what you are going to do, our money dictates that you will do that, flip them the bird and say, find somebody else. Because you don't need to be made to look like a fool for something that isn't that might be under your charge, but that is not of your doing. I'm telling you, Malcolm, if you're listening and we're right about you, don't take this line down. I wouldn't. They can fire me. Wouldn't I was looking for a job when I found this one. And Malcolm is a highly successful man. He'd be fine the next day, I promise.
Well, and that's my concern. Let's say that for a minute they've got the right guy for the AD job. And he just said, screw this, I'm in a no-win situation. Then what do you do if your AD leaves not a year into the job? And you know what? I wouldn't blame him. I mean, if he has to take all the stuff that he is taking right now, you know what? You only get so many years on this earth. There's no reason to spend them in misery if you have another choice.
That's right.
Vanderbilt never can get ahead of the story, and it is always reactive. You know, the changes with athletics came after they got their pants pulled down in the Tennessean. They never, and I hear this internally a lot, we never get ahead of the story, and this is just another example of the problem that has plagued them for years. I hope to God, I genuinely hate to see what is happening to Malcolm. You do not enjoy seeing anybody go through that. And I say the same thing about Derek. That is one reason that I've told you that I hope this will be over. I think Derek just is going to continue to get battered and battered and battered. And I don't even care if Derek deserves it in a professional sense, right? I mean, it's his responsibility. I get that. I don't like the venom that comes with these things. I don't enjoy seeing anybody go through that. And you watch them, and it's just like, you know the song about I don't know why I swallowed the fly? It's just like, it's just one thing after another with them. And I say this out of all due respect for Vanderbilt University and the great things they have done. Um, you just feel like it's like when you look your best friend in the eye and you say, "Buddy, I love you," but you're with the wrong girl. And you have to tell somebody a hard truth. And that is just how I see it. It is not my job to defend Vanderbilt or to carry their water. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I just look at the situation from the view that I've had, from the stuff I hear, and I just see these patterns over and over and over where they are constantly reactive and they're always two steps behind, and one bad decision begets another one, and next thing you know, you got a lot of unintended consequences, and you can't keep up quickly enough.
Malcolm, you're not stuck. You're not stuck. You know that. Do what you. I don't care. I don't care if you got to get on the horn and say, or get on Twitter and say, look, this person won't let me do this. They won't let me. My hands are tied. There's no way that I would make this decision like that. I wouldn't do it. But these people right here are tying my hands, and they're forcing me to do something that I know is detrimental to this program and to this university, this athletic department. But they're leaving me no choice. I would never do this. Don't take the fall for somebody else. They wouldn't do it for you. They're not. I promise you that. Now, let me say this, Chris. It's 5:05, so I've got about 10, 15 minutes. So if you've got a mailbag, we probably need to jump on it.
Yeah, let's go there. We have got more questions than we can get to. I will pick a few. Today's mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Do you need an insurance agent who wants to know your unique needs and circumstances and will tailor an insurance plan to fit them? Josh is your guy. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JDMintonHQ. He is my agent. Give him a shot. I think you will be pleased. Pedor says, what does Vanderbilt do next year when we are 2-10 is still discussing the facilities plan, and Mason's buyout has only gone down to $6 million, but we have lost $3 million in revenue due to lost ticket sales and such. This is going to be a problem that is equal to or greater than his current buyout. How can they justify keeping him this year and then getting rid of him next year when we'll be in the same sinking boat again?
Well, did you hear them try to justify keeping him this time around?
Yeah,
they don't. That's my. They don't have to justify it because they believe that we are so small in numbers and this is not going to move the needle. They're not. They won't try to justify it because they don't feel the need to. Because again, I hate to keep having to say it. You don't matter. If you did, they would try to justify that, but they haven't because they don't have to. So when they go, and I don't know where the two games, we think Mercer, good luck at this point, because I got news for you. There's going to be some players on this team that ain't there next year in key positions. And if you think it's bad now, look out. But you know what? Okay, man, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. This team's going to lose 11 games next year probably. And what are they going to do to justify it? Nothing. They're not going to say a word. They're going to use that as a barometer to fire him now or then at that time. If they haven't seen enough by now, there's nothing to see. Leslie Nielsen in front of the fireworks factory on the Naked Gun. Nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. There'll be no justifications. They're not going to explain a thing to you. You don't matter enough to them.
I had forgotten about that scene. That was a classic.
A great movie. Do you remember who was the lead? By the way, a trivia question for you. This man's birthday is today. He's 74 years old. He was the leadoff batter in the movie The Naked Gun. A legit a Major League Baseball player. Former player, and he was first up to bat for the Mariners against Dave Spivak and the California Angels in the movie Naked Gun. Do you know who that is?
He's 74 now?
He's 74 now. Who was at bat?
Oh, man. Naked Gun was, what, 90-ish?
I guess.
I want to say Gorman Thomas, but I don't think he's that old.
I think he's 74. It's what I saw today on Twitter.
Or Pete
You give up?
Vukovich. Or was Pete Vukovich in Major League?
He might. I don't remember seeing him in Naked Gun.
Okay.
The gentleman who was batting leadoff for the Mariners that day was a young man by the name of Jay Johnstone.
Oh, well, he would be perfect for that movie. I've not seen that one in a long time. I'm glad you said that. That's one I need to Netflix or
Yep.
whatever. So that was
Jay Johnstone. Remember that first pitch came throw right down the middle? Leslie Nielsen just sat there. Crowd, the stadium went silent. He said,
Did you ever
right?
Did you ever read his autobiography? It was hilarious.
Leslie Nielsen or Jay
No,
Johnstone?
Jay Johnstone. You're
No,
like, I didn't know Jay
he's a funny
Johnstone had an
guy.
autobiography. Yes.
Yeah, I know he's a very funny guy, but no, I have not.
Yeah, I
I'm
did. I
stunned
think
to
when I
see
was in
that.
high school. So, yeah, boy, we need a
Okay.
diversion there. Okay. Vandy Nash says, do you think Mason will have a win total mandated for him to have to hit next year? Was this a one-year kick the van decision to get things in place?
See previous answer to the previous question. See answer to the previous question, if you will. There's no number, Chris. There's no number.
How can there be a number? It'll either be a number that he won't hit or so laughably low that it just tells you everything they need to know about what they think about him.
There's no number. There is no number. Doesn't exist.
By the way, a little more background on the contract. I was told that was sort of security to provide Derek for what was expected to be a rebuilding year, but that was before those big three announced they were all coming back, which I don't think was expected at the time. So there's that too.
Sure.
Ann Arbor says, you said last week you liked the incoming class, so who in that class do you think can help next year?
Well, I think we all know one name. And it may be because we have no choice, and maybe because he's just absolutely ready. We'll see. But that's Ken Seals out of Weatherford, Texas. I think that he is he has, and you've heard me talk about him for a while. You know, I mean, not to put undue pressure on anybody. I'm just a big fan. I've watched his film. I've read everything about the cat, and I'm wild about him as a prospect. Now, some of the other guys that are going to come in that I could think make a difference early on, I think they're pretty clear. I think one of them's Donovan Kaufman. Donovan Kaufman is a playmaker, Chris. You remember when he pulled the trigger on that commitment, how happy I was about that, because that dude right there is just an all-around player. I mean, I could see him helping on special teams. I could see him knocking people. I could see him being DJ Moore, Chris. You know, that type of player. I really like Donovan Kaufman, and the accolades continue to pour in for him. That's one of the best players in the state of Louisiana. I really, really like him a lot. I think he has a chance to come in and play early. I think that Jordan Butler has a very good chance to come in and play early. I mean, think about it, Chris. Think about the level of competition that Jordan Butler has played over the last year or two, playing at IMG Academy. One of the captains of that football team. He's a big, massive, mobile interior defensive lineman, and you can't have enough of those. And he, along with guys like Davion Davis, are generally guys that we haven't been able to procure a lot. That is something that I have been pleased with when it comes to Derek Mason lately, is a couple of these players that he's been able to reel in over the last couple of classes. I think that he has a chance to come in right away. I think of one of the receivers in this class that has a chance to come in and play right away. He's already developed a rapport with Ken Seals, and that's Logan, which by the way, very skilled route runner. He's got speed. He's got hands. He's a strong kid. I think he could come in and make a difference. And because, frankly, we're going to need – I mean, we got some good young receivers, but we losing a guy like Lipscomb, we're going to need to help replace him that, and maybe he can step in and do that. And then maybe one more for you I would probably go with – actually two. Now, this guy, I mean, oh man, he's an athletic freak. I mean, he hadn't put up a lot of the numbers, but it may be the offense that he's in. But the Diego LaMonica kid out of Miami is a pretty exciting prospect. And, I mean, of course, I don't know if we try to get him the ball. I mean, we have Jared Pinkney, and he doesn't get the ball thrown to him, so why would we throw it to a true freshman? But you never know. And then lastly, I'm going to probably go with Griffin Lampton, the big edge out of St. Thomas, which, of course, we've done a good job of building a little bit of pipeline there. Maybe put on a little bit of weight. He's got a really explosive first step, put on a little weight in the weight room, and he may be able to contribute pretty early.
Last one, and I'll let you go.
Okay.
ATL Door says, while Vanderbilt seems to pay its head coaches well, is that also true for assistant coach salaries? Could that have been part of the problem in not finding an offensive coordinator this past season? Do you think this could be part of the quote-unquote resources Turner will provide the program?
I mean, that's a really good question now, Chris, in regards to what they make in being private at the university. Maybe you're privy that I am not.
Well, I think my impression was they went in and really tried to find Derek a good offensive coordinator, which is how they landed Ludwig. And, of course, Andy had coached at places that spend money on football and is now at another really good football school, at least good for the time. Somebody mentioned to me this week, they just don't think that he's that well connected in the coaching community, which seems crazy, as many places as he's been. I don't know if that's fair or not. I do know this. I look at the situation if I'm a coordinator and I say, jettison one every year. So with that, and maybe you're not guaranteed beyond next year, that's one thing I just keep running into a dead end is how do you attract somebody if you need a coordinator change? How do you attract somebody to that job right now? I mean, he's been through what? This is his third offensive coordinator. This is his third defensive coordinator. His fourth special teams coach. And it's been 6 years. I don't know that how out of the ordinary that is because there is a lot of coaching turnover, but his solution for the problem has always been it's the coordinator's fault. Let's get another one and move on. And I would have to think that gets back to people in the coaching community.
Yeah, that worked well for UT, hasn't it, over the last?
Yeah, that's been great.
Too, right? I mean, everybody understands that. You can't have a revolving door of coordinators like that and expect to have success unless you are one of those programs that is just. But look, everybody talks about Joe Burrow, and they should. He's a baller. And Chase and Jefferson and a great running game, But what about Steve Ensminger? What about the job he's done? You got to find I believe in stability. I do. Stability is one of the biggest keys, but you've also got to find the right fit. And maybe Andy wasn't quite as bad as we thought. But that doesn't make him good. That doesn't make him the type of coordinator that come in and change things. Of course, I like Andy personally. I think he's a pretty good coordinator. But I can't think of anybody right now who would be willing to parlay their future with a program like that that's in utter chaos. Why if you are an up-and-coming name and you want to cut your teeth, you really going to bank it on Derek Mason? Really? Because I'm trying to picture myself as one of those coaches. I'd be very leery. I'd sit there talking to my wife. I mean, this is a big opportunity. It's the SEC. Who knows? We could just about pick our job, but it sure hadn't worked out well for anybody so far. And Andy's, I mean, he already had the reputation and the connection. He'd been around, so I wasn't surprised when Utah came calling. But I mean, you think anybody, not that Jason Tarver falls under this category, but do you think anybody's going to be calling Jason Tarver's phone anytime soon for worthy defensive coordinator job once he's gone from Nashville? I seriously doubt it. Think anybody was blowing up Carl Durrell's phone? No. I mean, you gotta weigh that stuff before you take. You can't just go out there and just take a job because it's an SEC job and think I'm on my way. Because you make one wrong move, you know, your star burns bright for a while, but it eventually will fade. And I'm just not ready to. I don't know that I would hitch my wagon to Derek Mason if I'm a coordinator.
What else?
What else? Really? You had me going till midnight with a question like, what else? What else is I got to get out of here?
Well, I do too. I'm going to head to the Austin Peay basketball game in a minute. Thanks for joining us, and where can people find your show?
Man, you can find my show at WNWS.com in Jackson, Tennessee, 101.5 FM. And you can find me on Twitter at Cheap Seats Bass. I've been a little bit more active in the last 24 hours than I generally am, as you can rightly imagine, but it's at Cheap Seats Bass.
He is Seabass. I am Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thanks to Seabass for joining us. Thank you for listening. We will try to get one more episode of the Vandy Sports Podcast up before week's end.